Hey, family, this is Che Willis coming back with another episode of Wealth is a Journey podcast. Guys, this is episode 102. 102 weeks of consistency, 102 weeks of getting it done, getting good information, and I'm super excited. Today we have a guest, but before we get started, if you are a first-time listener, watcher, or subscriber, thank you so much for joining us. On this podcast, we talk about faith, family, and finances, among other things. If you are a return listener, watcher, or subscriber, thank you so much for joining us again. Hopefully, we're adding value to your lives on the way to the M's. Because as always, we are on the way to the M's. So, guys, again, we have an esteemed guest today. We have Tony Manganello. Let's go. Thank you
Way
so
to
much.
go on the pronunciation, Kate. That was
Appreciate that. Thank you. I practiced it for a while. Like,
perfect.
I
It
don't want
does
to mess
require
this up.
some. It requires some practice.
Yeah. So Tony, thank you so much for joining us. But what I want you to do, if you don't mind, is just introduce yourself. Just give us a small snapshot of who you are, what you do, and then we'll go ahead and get into the conversation.
Sure. Tony Manganello. I'm a devoted husband, father of seven, and been doing personal finance for 30 years, actually a little bit more than that, focused on helping families escape what I call the payment matrix
Mm,
and get on the path towards true prosperity.
wow. So Tony, I always a lot of times I always ask my guests this question because I want to kind of get into the backstory of who you
Mhm.
are. So tell me about little Tony growing up. Was little Tony all about money? Like, what was your first introduction to money? Was it talked about in your family, things of that nature?
Interesting that you would ask. My introduction to money is probably not very common.
Okay.
I was in the 70s, my father decided he was going to leave our family.
Mm,
And one day I tried to talk him back to, coming back home. And I was like about 11 years old. And I said, Dad, doesn't matter what you've done. We forgive you. Doesn't matter what you haven't done. We still love you. And we just want you home with us. And
sure.
it was an episodic memory, one of those. And
Hmm.
as well as I tried, he just got up and walked. And as I got older, because in the 70s, divorce wasn't very common as
Hmm.
it is today. And so I was one of the very few groups of people, children, who had just a mom at home. And so I was really curious what caused this rift. Now there were a number of things,
Sure.
but the personal financial stress my family was under, well, let's just say it doesn't make things better.
Yeah.
And my commitment to families is last time anybody has sat down at the kitchen table and said, you know what? We've got crazy schedules. We've got so many demands on our time. We got so many things going on. Thank God we can't pay our bills. It makes everything so much better. Said no one ever, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, the thing is, financial stress just amplifies every other problems that families are facing, and they face enough on their own already.
Sure.
And so my commitment has been to help families turn the volume down on the financial stress portion of their lives so that they can focus on the things that are more important to their families and to cherish the time they have because it's not as long as we'd like to think.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And I the older I get, I'm starting to realize like the bad things that happen to us, we come to a fork in the road, right? And we can
Yeah.
either go right or we can go left. And a lot of times when people are super successful or successful in any realm of their life, they went through something.
Yeah.
They went through a painful time and they didn't allow that to kind of stop them from getting to where they wanted to go.
Yeah.
So is that I'm assuming that's kind of what happened to you as far as your
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to know what, because my like you said, my fork in the road was, when it comes to family. As I said, we have seven children. We've been married 30 years, and
congratulations by the way.
thank you, thank you.
That's major.
We just had our 30th anniversary last month,
Awesome.
and I didn't want to fall into that same trap.
Hmm.
I wanted to, my family was real important to me as a child. To
Hmm.
watch that crumble was devastating, and
Sure.
so my commitment was basically in finding out what were the root causes of making that happen. And
Yeah.
then, because I grew up in a single family or single parent home, money was always tight. And so the allure of entrepreneurialism, which, has been, I don't know, you could call it a good thing or an infection or, but it's been about making money, but it's
Sure.
not just about making money. It's about making the life that you have what it should be,
Yeah.
what it deserves to be. And unfortunately, the way the system and the way money and our economy and culture is set up, it's not helping families. It's
Sure.
actually the underlying uh, ulterior motive is to drain families of their wealth.
For
And
sure. Yeah.
that's what I want to help people stop,
Yeah. And it
plug that drain.
What's going on, family? This is Che Willis from Wealth as a Journey. Did you know that we just started a wealth building community? In this community, we meet once a month on Zoom. We discuss financial areas of opportunity. We discuss wins and strategies to get you to the M's. In anybody's wealth building journey, if you're just starting out, it can be super lonely and difficult. In this community, we're also going to hold you accountable to where you say you want to be. So if you need the accountability, if you need the family atmosphere, if you need help getting to your desired financial result, come join the community. My website is www.wealthisajourney.com. Join the community today to get to your financial result. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
so my question to you is, as you got older and you started getting a little bit more money, did you
Mhm.
fall into that trap of being a consumer
Oh,
because
yes.
now you made
Oh,
it?
yeah. Before I knew what I know now, absolutely. When I was a sophomore or junior in college,
Hmm.
you get those letters in the mail.
Yeah.
You are approved for up to so many
Uh-huh.
thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
So I had no idea how all that stuff worked at the time. So I sent it back in. And I got a credit card for $1,100. I thought I had 1,100 bucks in my pocket. I didn't know what I had was a plastic parasite in my pocket.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't long after that where I realized I woke up one Saturday morning to a collection guy calling and demanding me send him money. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm like, dude, if you want to play Moses and strike the rock and see if you could get some water, pick a number. It's like a deli counter here, And he said, well, how much can you pay? I said, I could give you 30 bucks. He goes, okay, well, I'll need you to FedEx that to me. I said, sure, I'll FedEx the 15 bucks to you. He's like, what happened to the 30? I said, you just spent 15 of it on FedEx. So I've been there, and
Yeah.
I've did all the wrong things.
Sure.
And as I grew older and my experience, became more enhanced, I realized that the personal finance uh, landscape people have is much too complicated, and it's complicated for a reason because I call it the payment matrix, as I mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
Everybody's in the payment matrix, they don't even know it.
Yeah.
And I like to ask people to find out if you are in the payment matrix. Here's a simple question. When you think of money, what comes to mind? And people will say things like budgeting, fear.
Hmm.
They'll say, 401k. They'll say all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's only one thing people need to keep in mind when it comes to money. Between now and whenever you want to quit working someday, you're going to generate hundreds of thousands, possibly even millions of dollars in income.
Yeah.
And when it comes to how it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
For
My
sure.
question is not what you make there, it's what you keep of that. And if you're not thinking about that, then you're most likely caught in the payment matrix doing budgeting.
Yeah.
You're saying, I make this much, I got this much in payments going out every month, and oh, thank you, Lord, I've got X number of dollars left over. And you think that that's where you need to be, and that's what they want you to think. The famous they. Because
Yeah.
what's happening in between that top number and the bottom number is eroding your financial future. Interest rates, people think they're getting charged the interest rates, or I should say, people think they're paying the interest rates they're being charged. When in fact, research shows my own personal work with thousands of people over the years, the average person's spending, or I should say, paying about 50% interest, give or take, every month
Golly.
because they don't understand how the volume of dollars in interest you pay every month or I should say the interest rates you're being charged translates into how much you're actually paying. And the saying that I've come up with is that when you pay the minimum payment,
Mhm.
you pay the maximum interest.
That's a fact. Now,
And,
Tony,
and
you said something earlier that I want to go back to.
sure.
You said that you were caught in that trap.
Hmm.
How did you get out? Like, what was the thing that light bulb moment, and what exactly did you do to get out of that?
It's a funny story. So I started doing all this stuff with, you know, multi-level marketing, all about
Okay,
making more money.
sure.
And then I met someone who 30 years ago we decided we would be married. And
Okay.
actually, it was her parents who wanted to get us together. And my father-in-law is John Commuta. And John Commuta he's retired recently, but I worked with him for 30 years. And he
And
was
for
the one
those who
who,
don't know, who was John Community? So people who don't know.
John Commuta is the author of many, many books. And he's the one who started the Snowball debt elimination program, not the
Okay.
other guy that many people think. I won't
Okay.
get into that.
Okay. Dave Ramsey,
Okay.
I got you. I got
Yeah,
you.
it
Okay.
wasn't him.
Okay.
I got a little, if we got time, I'll give you the side story on that one.
Yeah. Go. Yeah.
All right. Well, we were teaching this message about snowball debt elimination and just not just about, because I can show you how to do that in like 5 minutes, but it's all a complete mind shift. It's
Sure.
really about your mindset and your money. And when we would go and tour through the cities and do presentations, and one morning I was in, north suburb of Chicago. I can't remember what the name of it was, but I get up in the morning, I'm getting dressed and ready with a suit and tie and all that stuff, going to do a presentation that day, put the TV on, and I hear a guy named Dave Ramsey promoting his book, The Financial Peace Planner.
Hmm.
And he said something that made me almost drop my coffee. He said, because credit cards are like consumer cocaine. And what the reason that shocked me is because that's what my father-in-law started calling credit cards years before that. Okay.
Okay.
So then, we had this thing at the time called the Debt Free and Prosperous Living Basic Course. It was a book and tapes that taught everything you really need to know. And I went back to the office after the trip was over. The next day I was in the office. I went in our data management to see and I looked for Dave Ramsey, and he purchased my father-in-law's course. So I
Okay.
was like, you can't, when they say authors, when they read multiple sources, it's research. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's done a lot of good for people.
Sure.
I don't agree with everything he teaches.
Hmm.
I think there's a little bit more empathy that people deserve.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's just all about the numbers.
Yeah.
And that's what, money is about math and mindset. The first thing is I'm going to generate hundreds of thousands, or if you've got decades of work to left, you're going to generate a million or more dollars. The average income today for the I think the millennials is 2.7 million dollars in lifetime income. I call it your lifetime value. And
Sure.
that's what you have to be thinking about. Forget about this double digit interest rate of return nonsense that people are promoting. I used to do that too, and I know why that people are using 12% when they project everything. We won't get into that,
Yeah.
but but it's not it's that mentality is what I call the leftover investment plan. You pay everybody else, you pay yourself last, because this pay yourself first stuff from the richest man in Babylon, that was published in 1926. I think a few things may have changed since then.
For sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so paying yourself first, you know who gets paid first all the time? Uncle Sam.
Hmm.
He's always getting paid first. Then when you do your budget, it's all the other stuff that you owe. And then what's left over is what you're hoping you can pay yourself with. And that's paying yourself last. So what I teach is take what you pay yourself last with and do it differently. And instead of thinking about your budget in the mentality of I got to pay my bills,
Hmm.
when you do that, you place the absolute wrong purpose on your income. you're saying to yourself, the purpose of the income from my work or career is to pay bills. And that couldn't be more wrong,
Sure.
because the purpose of the income from your work or career must be to replace the income from your work or career.
Now,
If
let me ask you this.
Yeah,
How do you get people to shift their mind to think that?
okay.
That's Go
Well,
ahead.
well, the thing, it's about the numbers.
Yeah.
We reveal to them, for instance, if I've got a spreadsheet that any of the listeners can request, it's called "How much interest are you really paying?"
Okay.
You fill it out, and it'll show you from your monthly payments how much of that monthly payment amount is interest, and that's where 48 to 52% or more is being paid interest, because
Okay.
people aren't taught how amortization tables work. No one knows how minimum payments on credit cards are calculated.
Yeah,
And
it's
I can tell
bad.
you that I mean, people will say a car is the worst investment because it depreciates in value. When you look at what you're paying interest on, you pay the least amount of interest on your car. You're paying the most on your mortgage. You're paying the most on your credit cards. But they're making you think that if you can make your payments, you can afford them.
Mhm.
But if that was true, where's the pile of cash you should be sitting on? Because if
Yeah.
they were truly affordable, you'd be sitting on one right now. And if you're not, what does that tell you?
Yeah. No, I agree. I feel like, people live to make payments because that's the norm.
Yeah.
That's the cultural norm. I can afford that, so that means I can make the payment on that thing.
Yeah.
When they don't realize that that's robbing you of, really truly living the life that you want to live, because
Right.
I want to show people that I have this amount of money when you really don't
No.
at the end of the day.
I think it's a joke they call people homeowners. And I want to ask them, so if you have a mortgage, you're not.
Correct. Yeah,
Because just
correct. The
stop
bank
making
owns
the
it.
payments and the owner will show up pretty quick.
The bank, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. So are you currently on what part of your journey are you on? Are you on the debt-free journey? Are you debt-free already? Like where are you at right
Oh
now?
yeah, my journey is committed to helping families get
Okay.
to where they deserve to be. I mean, I've been a I've been an author. My first book I wrote in 2008,
Mhm.
and I just published a book last year in September called Transforming Payments into Prosperity,
Yeah.
where it teaches everything I've learned in working with thousands of people just over the last dozen years.
Hmm.
And my commitment is to help people learn how simple this is,
Hmm.
because everybody thinks it's, you know, day trading, it's all this crazy stuff that the payment matrix wants you to focus on,
Yeah.
because every month they're picking your pocket. And when you look at this nonsense with debt to income ratios, most people don't understand how that's calculated. It's calculated by taking your debt payments and dividing it by your gross income. Last time I checked, no one makes
See,
payments with gross income,
for sure.
right? So no
Yeah.
one stops to think, how much do I have to gross to bring home enough to make those payments?
Yeah.
And that's around 48 to 52% of your gross income already spent before you even earn it.
Yeah.
So when
No,
you're
that's true.
making payments that are 50% interest and it's costing you half your gross family household income, just because you can make those payments doesn't mean you can afford them.
No, for sure. No, I agree. The reason I asked that, I was asking you, like, as far as like your personal journey. Are
I'm
you
almost
debt?
there. I'm almost there.
Got it. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool, cool. Because
Yeah.
because my question to you was like, how did you get from that mindset that you were in till I'm going to be debt free, or
Oh,
I'm on this journey? Like, how did you start that journey?
well, first it was understanding how much interest am I paying? It's
Yeah,
like, what?
yeah,
And then realizing that when it comes to how much you got to gross to how much for what you could bring home,
yeah,
I like this is nonsense. This is insane. There's no way I'll be able to retire. And that
yeah,
actually the National Institute on Retirement Security stated a number of years ago, not too long ago, that 92% of all the working families in America are frighteningly short of being able to quit working. 92%.
yeah,
And what they mean is if you want to maintain the lifestyle you've become accustomed to while you're working, That's why I say the purpose of your income should be to replace your income.
Correct.
Because if you're not working to do that, then you'll have to work till you die if you want to maintain the standard of living you're used to.
Yeah,
Because everybody's using debt, paying money, they're using tomorrow's money today. When tomorrow comes, they're broke. 92% of them are anyway. And
sure.
my journey is about helping people get that paradigm shift, unplug from the matrix, and see the world the financial world the way they should see it. That
Yeah,
they are millionaires in the making. The reason they don't feel like it is because the matrix has been sucking them dry.
for sure. Yeah, and that's the hardest part for me as what I do, trying to get people to see long term down the road. But we have many examples of maybe family members or friends who
Hmm.
have been down that road already. So
Oh
you
yeah.
have plenty of examples right here sitting right in front of you, but a lot of people think, oh, that's not going to happen to me. But if we continue on this journey the way it's
Yeah.
going currently, then that will happen to you.
Yeah.
So getting people out of that mindset into the mindset of I'm going to think longer term down the road, that's the challenge.
Yeah. And Tony Robbins says you got to get really angry to make change.
Yeah.
And so my philosophy and my tactic, if you will, has been to get them angry, get them to realize this is what you're actually paying. This is what it's costing you. And I mean, the average family has around $3,000 in debt payments every month when you look at their mortgage, couple cars, and credit cards. If 1,500 of that, give or take, is going to interest, that's
Yeah.
$18,000 a year that you have to grow somewhere around 22 to 23,000
Yeah.
just to put pot money in the pockets of the banks. And it's like if that doesn't make you angry, I don't know what else will.
For sure. I'm getting angry just thinking about it. And I don't have payments. So it upsets me.
It upsets me
Yeah,
too because I
for
see it all
sure.
the time. And the only thing we can do is water the seeds, and hopefully they'll take root and just be there. It's funny because I get people who will come to me 2 to 3 years later and say, I'm ready. And it's like, hey, better late than never. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Next best time is today. So,
Yeah. Nah, that's great, man. So yeah, trying to get people in that mindset. You're now in that mindset. Did you have people now that you're telling them that you're on a debt-free journey? I'm assuming now, right?
mhm.
Did you have
Trying to do what I teach.
correct. Now,
Yeah.
did you have people, friends, family tell you that you're crazy for doing what you're doing?
The funny thing about money is, that you've heard it. People rather talk about their marriage, their health, work, everything but money. And I've come to my opinion on that is two reasons. Number one, most people are embarrassed
Yeah,
about how their money is. And number two, if you have money, you don't want anyone to know because they're going to ask to borrow some. That's our premise when we work with the folks that we help. It's always about the numbers. I'm not trying to use some, and I've written sales things, and I've trained salespeople,
sure.
but this is not about sales. It's about education. It's about giving people the education and knowledge of how money works so that they can learn to make it work for them. People think there's only two ways money works, either for you, or you work for it, or it works for you.
Mhm.
There's not, there's a third way. When you're in
Okay,
debt, it works against you.
for sure. Yeah,
And that's what we're trying to help people understand is that this flow of money is why I don't talk in budgeting terms. I talk in terms of cash flow.
hmm
Right now, you got paychecks coming in and it's flowing in, flowing out, flowing in, flowing out.
hmm
We need to redirect the outflow so that more is coming back to you and less is flowing out to the banks who, I mean, they couldn't care less about anything. They don't, only time they contact you is when you're behind in payments.
yeah, yeah. Nah, that's good, man. So full disclosure,
Hmm.
I'm a Ramsey guy. However, I do have credit cards.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily follow every single step, but I can say that what he taught, whether it was from your father-in-law or wherever he got it from, it worked for me.
Yes.
So I think I read somewhere that you said that budgeting. What do you? Well, what's your stance on budgeting?
I think people need to understand that the way budgeting is taught is just
Okay.
the beginning.
Okay.
When you've got payments going out and you've got your budget says you've got money left over,
Hmm.
that's where it starts, not where it ends. Most people
Okay.
stop there. And then they take what's left over and they throw it into whatever leftover investment plan they can find.
Sure.
And
Or
when
they'll
you,
just spend it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The buy term, invest the rest never works because everybody buys term and spends the rest.
Okay.
And, that's the problem with most people is they're not understanding how the numbers work.
Hmm.
And why in my latest book, the chapter one is you're being duped. And it's because just because you can make your payments doesn't mean you can afford them. And that's the
For sure.
biggest illusion.
Agreed.
Because if they could afford those payments, the definition of affordability means you have money somewhere. But
Yeah.
why is everybody broke? Because they don't understand how the numbers work. And then the biggest challenge in saving for the future is most people make the mistake of thinking, this dollar I have, it can go for the future or I can use it for today. They think it's an either or, but there are strategies where you can do both and that's a game changer. Because when you like what we used to teach people is how to get out of debt,
Hmm.
save hundreds of thousands of dollars or over $100,000 in interest, and build a big nest egg. Well,
Okay.
we know what the market's been like. How
Yeah.
predictable is that? And so what we've come to the conclusion over the last 12 years, oh, maybe what is it now? Maybe 13, 14 years now,
Mhm.
is that pay off debt and build tax-free wealth with the same dollars at the same time.
Okay.
So when you're doing it that way, you get debt free, but you're not starting from zero. Because when you snowball your payments, all that money's snowballing to all your creditors. And what do you get out of that? Nothing until it's all gone. Then you've got some money to pay to
Sure.
pay yourself with, right?
Yeah.
Well, why wait until this 5, 6, 7 years it's going to take for you to become debt free? There are ways that we teach that it takes a little longer, but from day one you're building wealth because
Yeah.
we do something with the dollars. We put it into a special type of account. It's essentially a high cash value, whole life dividend earning, whole life insurance contract, which I know Dave, he,
Yeah.
I've watched enough of his stuff that
Sure.
he talks about 12% interest rates and rates of return. That's not that 12%, you know where it comes from?
I'm tell me.
Let me tell you. When I used to do mutual fund sales back
Yeah.
when I first got started, you know the spiel, right? Here you go. It says, all right, KHA, if you put 10 grand in this mutual fund 20
Hmm.
years ago, today it would be worth this much. And that is this 17.5% rate of return over that 20 years.
Yeah.
So let's say if you put this much that you got this much of what you could put away monthly, dollar cost averaging, and you average only 12%. It's called price anchoring. They put the numbers in a context where you just told me, Tony, that it's 17.5%, but 12% should be reasonable. I don't know if you ever heard of the company called Dalbar Inc. They're for like 40, 50 years, they've been like the leader in financial research. And every so many years, they come out with a report that tells what the average investor actually earns. Previous to the latest report, it was 5.1%. It was just a little over 5%. Now it's just over 7%, which
Oh.
is a far cry from the 12%.
Yeah.
And and in my book, I quote Jack Bogle, who's the founder of Vanguard,
Mm.
and it was a quote from the book Tony Robbins wrote a while ago called Mastering or Money Mastering the Game, something
Money
like that.
master again. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And in the book, Jack Bogle tells him people don't do the math. If somebody put 10 grand into an account and earned 7% by the time they were his age, like he was 80 at the time, they'd have $540,000. But if you just pay the minimum to the fees that mutual funds charge,
Hmm.
roughly around 2%, that end result is only like 140 grand. So this, and here's the problem with all of this. People don't find out about what the result is until it's too late. You're in your late 50s, early 60s, and the million you thought you were going to have is just hundreds of thousands. And let me tell you, 50,000, $100,000 ain't a whole lot of money.
It's not.
It
It's
ain't a
not
whole
at
lot of
all.
money. And
Yeah.
it'll last you maybe a year,
Yeah. No,
and then
that's
you're
good.
broke. And when you're at the most vulnerable, that's when you should be you should have the golden years with some gold. But people
Yeah.
are going after fool's gold with this 12% nonsense, and they think that they can only use every dollar they have in deposit for one thing at a time. We just show them a completely different platform,
Got it.
and it's one that they can become their own banker, and uh, they just keep coming back for more. That's the, I had a phone call with somebody today who already started, and now they want to, they just want to double, triple down, and because it's worked so well for them.
Okay. No, that's good. So so you said about 12 years ago ish,
Mhm.
you started this piece of your industry, right?
Yeah,
So and you were just investing in the mutual funds before that?
yeah. I was, trying to play the game,
Sure.
and you talk about it when things go really good,
Yeah, of course.
and but that's a roller coaster. I decided to get off,
Sure.
and there's two industries that everybody knows always has money: the
Hmm.
banks and the insurance companies.
Yep.
And they don't teach you what they do. They tell you what to do, and they're doing something different. When it comes to how they manage their money, they're doing something different. And what we've done is I've kind of done the research to basically say, what are they doing with their money? Banks are buying these types of contracts. They're called BOLI, bank-owned life insurance contracts. The insurance companies, when you deal with a mutual insurance company that, in my book, I outline exactly what you're looking for. When you look at the numbers and you just apply some common sense to the overall structure of things, we've already seen that the 401k doesn't really work well.
Yeah.
And, 2008, what the people have said, what happened to those that were ready to retire? They had to keep working. But what happened to those who were already retired? Imagine being 75 years old and your portfolio loses 50%. What does that do to your monthly income?
Yeah. Kills it.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
we teach a different platform that's much more dependable and reliable.
Sure.
And it's one where you can do, I've got real estate guys that are using these platforms to flip properties. I've got day traders who park their money there and then they execute trades when they want to do them and then that money's still earning interest and dividends for them while they're using it today.
Yeah.
For an example, buying a car. I
Hmm.
have an example. You take out 30 grand, you borrow it from your policy,
Hmm.
and you're charged with the going rate for policy loans is like 5%. And the interest that you earn is about 4%, a little
Okay.
over 4. So people say to me all the time, Tony, how am I not losing money if I'm paying 5% and I'm only earning 4%? And the answer is in the volume of interest dollars, not the interest rates. Because every month you make your payment, you're decreasing the principal balance, therefore decreasing how much interest you're being charged. So month by month, you're being charged 5% on a decreasing principal amount. Month
Okay.
after month, you're earning 4% on an increasing principal amount. In the example of buying a $30,000 car with this platform, you pay off the car in 5 years. Most people do a 5-year payment plan. And at the end of the 5 years, you own the car, and the amount of money you earned in interest versus the amount of money you paid in interest,
Hmm.
you've made over $2,600. And you're driving the car that you like.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and then, because there's all this austerity, if you want to um, save money for your future, you can't do anything today, or you got to limit what you're doing today. And kind of like what you're saying, how do people make that mindset shift? It's getting them to realize when you take a page out of the playbook that the banks and the insurance companies are using, you can have a little bit of your cake and eat it too. But you still have to be wise when you're doing it, just like you would with anything else.
Sure.
But when you do it that way, you can have a nice new car because what? You have the car and you grossed a profit. You had a net profit on the purchase of the car because of the way the numbers work. And when you know how the numbers work, that changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah, here's what I understand. Like well, first of all, I don't understand everything about the life insurance policies
Mm,
and things of that nature. That's why you're here, right? Again, I'm a Ramsey guy, so we've been taught against that part,
mm,
but I want to be educated on it, right?
yeah.
So when you first heard about that, based on what you were taught before, how did you wrap your mind around going
Okay.
over here as opposed
That's
to what you were
another
taught?
funny story because I used to be one of those buy term investor S guys, and we were
Ah,
trained
okay.
how to break whole life insurance policies and how to
Yeah.
do all this stuff. And my father-in-law, who I've been working with, John Commuta, he's the one who discovered this concept.
Okay.
He didn't discover it like he came up with it, but
Yeah.
he got tapped in with a few people he met at his church, and there he's like, wow, this is really interesting. And he comes to me and he says, you got to learn about this whole life insurance thing. And the moment in my book, I say when I hear the words whole and life in the same sentence, that's when it's time to grab the torches and pitchforks, right? And but I love him so much. You'd be, oh, that sounds interesting, and I would leave it at that.
Hmm.
And for about 2 years, every now and then, we see him regularly throughout the year for birthday parties, picnic or not picnics, barbecues, things like
Hmm.
that. One day he said to me in his kitchen, but we can teach people how to pay off debt and build wealth with the same dollars at the same time. That was my wait what moment. That was like, hold on, explain that to me again, because
Yeah.
that doesn't sound possible. And when it gets down to it, when it comes to life insurance, the reason most people hate life insurance is because they all buy it wrong.
Okay.
What do when you're going to buy a life insurance policy? What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about the people I'm leaving behind.
You're thinking about how much will my loved ones get when I'm dead or
Yeah.
when I'm gone?
Yeah.
Because you want to do the noble, the right thing, and protect your family against loss of income.
Correct.
The other question is, in the equation between you and the life insurance company, are you the only one trying to protect yourself against loss of income?
Hold on. Say that
The
one more
answer
time.
is no.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I
Okay.
understood what you were
All
saying.
right.
Yeah.
So the insurance, when you got a life insurance policy,
Yeah.
did you just pay them and they gave it to you? No, you had to go
No.
through underwriting.
Yeah.
Underwriting is the process where they determine if you're worth the investment.
Got it. Yeah. For
And what
sure.
they're saying is that's why you can't give them your own doctor stuff. They might request those records,
Hmm.
but they have their own way of testing you. Samples of this and that and the other thing.
Yeah.
And when you get approved for a life insurance contract, I have a joke with people. I'll tell them, if you really want to know how healthy you are, forget about your annual update check with your doctor. Go apply for like $500,000 or $1 million worth of life insurance to see what
Yeah.
happens. If you get approved, that means you're pretty healthy because they're not going to risk that death benefit, especially on a term policy.
Mm.
Because I was a not a death benefit. I was a buy term investor S guy before I learned about all this. Um, I had a $500,000 policy when my wife and I had our first kid, $27 a month. So I rounded up to $30 a month. And then as a math guy, I began to do the math.
Mm.
And if I'm paying $30 a month over 20 years for $500,000, the most I'm putting into it is $7,200. Are they risking $500,000 thinking, unless they think this guy is going to outlive the term? So the only one who cashes checks on a term policy is the insurance company.
Yeah.
And so because they're not going to risk those resources, they wouldn't stay in business long unless they do that. So the question about asking what will this my loved ones get when I die, when I is the wrong question, because you have to think, if I get approved, if I get offered a contract, that means, at least with regard to natural causes, I ain't going anywhere for a good long time. The question has to be, what will the contract do for me while I'm alive? Because if you get approved, you're going to be circling the sun a couple dozen years before that death benefit gets paid out. And so
Right.
the answer to that question is to buy as much cash value as possible. And so we work
Okay.
these numbers. There are IRS requirements that have to be done. And our focus is to build as much cash value in the contract of these policies. When you have the right policy, you can take out the loan for that car you want to buy, pay yourself back, And while you've taken out that loan with the right kind of policy, it's been earning interest and dividends while you've been using the money.
So walk me through as much as you can without giving away your whole book, right? Or your training program.
Mhm.
80, let's just say it's $100,000 cash value policy.
Mhm.
Around about how much do I have to pay into it before I have access to this hundred
Oh,
thousand dollars?
that's where the this is where I began to have the paradigm shift and began to think, wait a minute.
Okay.
See, it's in how you pay your premium.
Okay.
Most people, when they buy death benefit, they're buying the biggest death benefit, and all their premium is going towards that, which is going to mean very little is going to go into cash value. So
Okay.
we look at the minimum death benefits we have to buy to make the IRS happy. And from day one, your cash value is growing.
Okay.
Depending on how much, like if somebody puts away $500 a month, by the end of the first year, they'll have around 3 grand or so in cash value. And we'll
Okay.
show them how to use that to pay off their debt.
Okay.
And instead of in the snowball method, what you do is you pay off debt and you snowball your payments to your creditors. What
Sure.
we're doing instead is snowballing your payments back into your contract so that the money keeps growing. You're out of debt. And by the time, like the sample family in my book, they pay off all their creditors in just over 8 years and they pay their bank back, their contract back by the third month of the ninth year. So they're completely debt free in 9 years and 3 months, and they have over $67,000 in cash value, and they have $3,100 a month freed up. If they start another contract the way we teach, by the time they retire, they're going to have $1.4 million, 35-year-old couple, $1.4 million in cash value that will give them $80,000 in tax-free income for 25 years.
Got it. Now, question. If they take the cash value, is that a loan against the policy?
Yes. Well, that's what we teach
Okay.
because think of it this way. If you're doing the leftover investment plan, right?
Hmm.
You paying all your bills, making them close to minimum
Sure.
payments, you're going to have payments for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the example in the book, $3,100 a month is actually it's $3,133 a month is what they're paying in debt service every
Okay.
month, which is 32,000, $33,000 a year in net pay, and that takes up 47% of their gross income. So now when you retire, the advantage of going into retirement debt free is that what is the burden you have upon retirement? How do you pay your bills? Well,
Yeah.
if you have debt going into retirement, if you're debt free when you go into retirement, that's 30 something thousand dollars they don't need to generate
Yeah.
and still have the same standard of living. So during the process, what gets overlooked a lot by guys like Dave who think that, they're just sold on the buy term, invest the rest stuff
Mhm.
is that your people are going to have payments no matter what. And when they become debt free, where are they going to put all that money? You keep talking about 10. Oh, actually, I don't know if you've noticed, he's now only saying 11%. But that money is still money that you can't touch. That's still money people are thinking I can use this for today or tomorrow. Why shortchange yourself? Why not use it for today while it continues working for tomorrow? Does that mean you could just, do whatever you want? No, you still have to be smart as long as you know how it works and you're
Yeah.
educated on how these things, how the machine, is designed to work.
Sure.
You're it's we have never in the last dozen years with I don't know how many thousands of people we've taught this to, not one complaint.
Yeah.
They just keep what happens is they come back and they say, I want to start another one. Or I want to start one for my kids, 529 plans for education.
Yeah.
It's much better to do it this way.
Yeah. So let's just say, and I'm asking because I don't know.
Yeah,
So I'm
sure.
asking you out of curiosity.
Hmm.
So let's just say I retire. I have cash value 100,000. I take a loan against it for 25. I still have 75 left, and the
Hmm.
money's growing and things of that nature. who's to say that I'm going to pay that money back? Like, how does that work as far as like you
Well,
have to pay
here's
it back? Like, how does that work?
depending on how much you're able to grow,
Hmm.
okay, you still have to use math, right?
Sure, sure, sure.
It's like if you have 100 grand, you take 25 grand out,
Mhm.
it's probably taking too much.
Okay.
Okay. And see, that's where people, when it comes to their mindset with money,
Hmm.
is people think $1 million is a lot of money. And it's only that they only think that way because they can't ever believe that they're going to have that much
Yeah,
because they've never been taught that they will generate that much wealth.
sure.
The problem isn't generating wealth. The problem is in accumulating some of the wealth that you are generating. Like I said
Yeah,
before, how much of that are you going to keep? And so, depending on your age and how much you can, time value of money and all the other factors, what you get when you're in your retirement years, whatever your cash value is, if let's say it's $150,000,
mhm,
divide that by 15, you'll get $10,000. That means you could take $10,000 out of that account for the next 20 years
okay,
before the contract winds up. If you live too long, like in any other case,
mhm,
when people, I just had this conversation today with a couple. I asked them, well, when you're ready, because they're getting close to retirement, they want to do a
sure.
little bit more right before that. And I asked them, the house you're living in, is that the one are you going to bury yourself in the backyard? Meaning, are you going to die there?
Yeah,
And most people, or not most, but there's a good number of people that will say, at some point, I'm going to sell this house and just, you know, downsize.
yeah,
And that way, if you have that type of plan in mind, then starting from retirement is you want to take out loans against your policy.
yeah,
Because when you sell your home, you're going to have a profit on the sale of the home. Where are you going to put it? Pay back the loan to your we call a private family banking policy. Pay back the loan and start the clock, restart the clock on how long that's going to last you. If you're going to be buried in the backyard of the house you're in, then we do something different. We call an income stream. We factor that out because you're taking money that is the premium payments over the years that you've put in, which has already been taxed, so it's tax free. And then once you've recovered all of that money, you can switch to the loan process where that remains tax free. So it really is a unique situation for most people.
sure.
And that's what I like to say the numbers dictate the decision. You just got to see what your numbers are. And
Okay.
if they work, great. If they don't work, that's great too, because at least you know.
Yeah,
That's really the only commitment we try to have and aspire to have for people is to give them all the information that they need from which they can make a decision they could just feel good about. And that's really what it should be about.
yeah. No, I agree 100%. And you said something earlier that I just remembered. The policies that you set up for different people, it's not a one size fits all. It's so somebody who's making say $50,000 is not going to get the same policy as somebody making 200 grand or something like that a year.
Yeah. And sometimes, we've had people who've come to us that are debt free
Mhm.
and they don't have $2,000 a month in payments. And like the folks that I'm working with, they have $4,500 a month, but they're not making. We have to. I can't tell you how many times the underwriters have said, "Where are they getting this money from?" It's because they're debt free and they're not. They don't have to pay loans back. Oh,
Yeah,
and that's the key is depending on your cash flow. How do we redirect the cash flow so that more is coming back to you and you're accumulating some of the cash that you're using at the same time for the future? So because these accounts give you the ability to borrow against them and you're going to borrow excuse me, money anyway, right? You're going to buy houses, cars, you're going to have payments. So you give yourself the same consideration that you give those third party banks. People break their necks making their payments.
for sure.
Pay yourself back. You deserve it more than anybody else. And when
Yeah,
you do that, you wind up with more resources on retirement, less demand or burden for income because you're debt free.
yeah.
And it's not in the market. So it's not like, when the market crashed in 2020 with the COVID thing.
Hmm.
We set a record in dividend payouts
Wow.
because
When the
it's
market was
completely
crashing.
different platform.
Yeah. Wow. What was I going to ask you? So the one thing that did scare me away from even considering getting a policy, an insurance policy, is from what I heard, you have to pay into it for a multitude of years in order for you to get any money out of it, depending on whatever the cash value piece is.
Hmm.
So is that a thing, or you can kind of start, depending on the policy, you can get money out immediately?
Yeah. We don't build the off-the-shelf whole life policy where
Okay.
you're buying death benefit.
Okay.
Those types of policies, yeah, there could be 6 months, could be 2 years before there's any cash value growing.
Got it.
We're, again, like I said before, it's all about transforming how you make your premium payments. And it's about buying cash value as much as the IRS will allow
Mhm.
so that the cash value remains tax free. And
Okay.
we only put the death benefit on the contract that the IRS says has to be there. And so
Okay.
what that means is every um, every payment, the majority of your payment is going into cash value from day
Okay.
one. And so you don't have to wait for, years, it's months. When
Yeah.
we teach people how to pay off their debt with these types of policies, you can do it on a daily basis where you're managing things uh, monthly, or you could say, hey, I'm just going to let it ride, let it cook for a year,
Yeah.
and then we enact a and execute a debt payoff plan at that point where we get the
Sure.
money out of the cash value, pay off some of the debts, redirect those payments that were going to the creditors that just got paid off back to loan payments to your bank, your private family banking contract, and rinse and repeat after year. And the family that I have in my book, it's their creditors are paid off in a little over 8 years. That's 96 months. So if you're doing the snowball method, that's 96 times you have to calculate all that. Here, it's once a year for 8 years. So it's eight
Okay.
times, and you're still getting the same benefits. And you could be more aggressive with it, and maybe squeeze out a few more interest points here or there.
Sure.
But I mean, let me ask you, Jay, isn't chaos the new normal these days? I mean,
It is
it's like
100%.
what flavor of chaos are we working with today, you know? And so it's like people are dodging bullets like Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah.
You don't want to give them one more bullet to dodge every month, but they can if they want to be more aggressive. Some people do because they're really committed. Others are like, yeah, I'm glad I can just once a year we get on an annual review,
Mhm.
check everything out, execute the plan, and see you next year. Unless you got any questions between now and then, let me know. We'll get on the phone or whatever it takes. But that's the whole purpose. Is like you said, wealth is a journey.
Mhm.
And this, when you start taking money and putting it into a mutual fund,
Mhm.
that money, you're just hoping that the market will cooperate. And on the when it doesn't, you know, if you lose 50% of your income, or I should say 50% of your portfolio, you have to have 100% return to break even.
Yeah. Nah, that's
And
true.
so to me, I do some things with currencies.
Mhm.
I have some, I like,
Do you like
instead of
Forex?
gambling, what's that?
It's like Forex trading?
Yeah. Well,
Okay. All right.
yeah, stuff like that. I'll dabble in that once in a while.
Yeah.
Um, and that, because I don't gamble, because
Yeah.
being in business is a big enough gamble on its own.
That's a fact.
But I'll take money that I can either, go out to dinner, buy something, or I can maybe turn this into something. I'll do
Sure.
that, you know. But
Yeah.
that's the extent of it. I can't deal with the market because I'm not one of those guys who has that temperament to be watching things daily
Yeah.
with my family commitments, my business commitments and everything.
Yeah.
I just like to have something that is, for the most part, on autopilot.
Yeah. Nah, that's good. And yeah, and that was one of the reasons I love like real estate as far
Hmm.
as an investment piece. Like, because that's pretty much on autopilot. If the house, the maintenance and all those things are up to snuff and everything like that. So as far as like real estate investing, you said you have
Hmm.
real estate investors who buy
Hmm.
policies. Now they buy for the cash value, I'm assuming, more
Hmm.
than the death benefit.
Hmm.
Once they buy it and then they pull the money out, to buy a piece of property. I'm assuming that's why they're doing it.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. All right. So if they don't pay the loan back, does the policy lapse or do they just keep paying into it every
Well,
month?
as long as they're making their premium payments,
Okay.
basically, this is one of the most difficult things clients have to wrap their brains around. Because when was the last time you took out a loan out where you didn't already know what the payment was going to be,
Correct.
right? Now,
Yeah.
on a credit card, they tell you every month what the payment's going to be.
Yeah.
And the minimum payment, that's what they hope you're making because that means they're getting 50% interest, give or take.
For sure.
With these types of loans, the insurance company doesn't even care if you pay it back at all. Now,
Mm,
a lot of people in this space will say you could take out loans and never pay them back. Yes, you can, but there are consequences for everything.
sure.
So, as an example, when it comes to flipping a house,
Hmm.
so let's say you've got $100,000 in your cash value, you need 50 to flip the house.
Yeah.
How long, when in your experience in doing this, because people have different timelines, how long does it take for you to flip the house and make the profit back? 12 months, give or take?
Yeah.
Yeah. So during that loan period, you're not making payments because the insurance company's not asking you for any. Now, I'll get on the Zoom meeting with my clients and calculate a payment for them if they want to. But in the case where you have, you're flipping a property, you get a bridge loan, at some point they're going to want you to start making payments. What if it takes a little longer to sell the house? In this environment, the only thing that happens is 1/12 of 5% at the end of the month gets added to the balance of the loan. So you're getting
Okay.
charged that little bit of interest, and then you're getting the interest is accruing, and it's compounding just a little bit.
Mm,
But if you took 50 grand out to flip a house and you sold it for $200,000, you pay your loan back. And is that a loan that you're paying back that means that money's gone forever? No, because that's recyclable cash.
yeah.
And then you pay Uncle Sam on the profit and you rinse and repeat. And there's never any pressure with like there are with bridge loans
Mhm.
because if it takes too long, maybe it takes an extra 3 or 4 months to sell, the insurance company never calls you, never sends you to collections. They because the way it's designed is they will get paid whether you're coming or going, right? So
Yeah.
let's say you have a policy, it's got $300,000 in death benefit, $200,000 in cash value, and you took out a loan for 50 grand, and the walls collapse on the house you're flipping, and your history. Well, if you have a $300,000 death benefit, the 50 grand is owed the bank, or owed to the insurance company.
Mhm.
250 gets paid out tax free to your beneficiaries. So that's how it works. And when you are going into retirement, we help calculate a good number of money that you can take out so you're not depleting it.
Mhm.
And when you do, I mean, you only need your death benefit once.
Mhm.
Most people are living in their 80s and 90s these days. Go try and buy a life insurance contract at that age.
Yeah.
Like my
Yeah.
story about my contract, my term life insurance contract,
Mhm.
I think it was in year 18, I got a letter saying that if I wanted to have the same contract after this one expired, my $27.32, whatever it was, payment was going to be $579 a month because I was 20 years older.
Yeah.
And so I took the number, I took that 579 and I went back and said, if I started one of these contracts back then, in 20 years, where would I be? I'd have 180 grand in cash value and I could stop making premium payments and the cash value would continue to grow and I'd have a death benefit without even having a premium.
Man. Okay.
See how you're like,
Yeah. It's
we're not taught this stuff. And
yeah.
that's why I do what I do is because the numbers are conservative but they're dependable and reliable. They've made through world wars. Basically companies that we work with are over 100 years old.
Mhm.
They're mutual companies, so they don't sell stock. The only way you can become a shareholder is by buying a policy. And as a shareholder in a policy that's participating in the company's profits, you get a dividend every year. And they've been paying dividend. They've never not paid a dividend. And so it's this to me like you said earlier, it's sometimes people need this sexy rate of return,
Yeah.
the big home run hit. those are few and far between. That what's the alternative plan? If you're my father, God rest his soul, he was my first buy term invest the rest guy
Okay.
back in the day. He bought term
Yeah.
and spent the rest on lotto tickets.
But that was the thing back then too. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing. When his term was up, he had, different types of cancer, COPD. He was uninsurable.
Mm,
See, when insurance companies that you buy term policies from, when your term is up, they might say there might be a rider that says guaranteed insurability. And then that makes you, no matter what, they're going to insure me. What they don't tell you is how much that premium's going to be. And if you're sick, it's going to be really high, meaning you won't be able to pay it. One of these policies, you get them you build them and use them the way we teach. You could get every disease known to man when you're older, and they can't cancel the policy because you've been paying your premiums, and it's a whole life insurance policy. I have a whole video on the buy term invest the rest thing. I'll have to send you. It's on my YouTube channel
yeah.
that outlines where I used to be to where I am today. And I understand that people have a lot of misgivings about whole life insurance policies because they have a bad rap, and
Sure.
it was well deserved for a long time.
Mhm.
I was one of those guys. I said torches and pitchforks. Come near me with one of those things. But when you get into how the numbers work,
Yeah.
that's where everything changes.
Sure. Nah, that's good. So Tony, you wrote a book
Hmm.
and it's from transforming payments to prosperity.
Yes.
So what are three takeaways that people can expect from reading your book? And tell me where you can get it as well, and we'll put it all
Okay.
everything in the description. But tell us where
Well,
we can get it.
the first thing that we've always kind of mentioned is we're in the hope business.
Hmm.
Most people, when it comes to their finances, they're confused and feel somewhat hopeless.
Yeah.
And so we're restoring that hope because we're making complex mathematical, financial, whatever you want to call them, algorithms, and we're simplifying it.
Sure.
And we're showing them this is just how it works so they can have some hope again. And they'll have a real good understanding as to how to plug the holes where all the interest money is dripping away.
Yeah.
And then they'll be able to actually put a plan in place that they'll know what the plan's going to do before they even, the thing about the mutual fund thing where they project that 12%, whatever they want to project at, that's very, very iffy. We all know that.
Sure.
This plan is much more dependable, reliable. It's got over a century of track record, and it's not in the market.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I want to help people get hope and have a plan that they understand and they have an idea before they even start it. This is where I'll be, not some fantasy number that, that there was sold to them on that 12%,
Yeah.
nonsense that people talk about.
The policy is more predictable.
Yes. And
Yeah.
the insurance companies, let's face it, like I said, they always have money. The banks always have money.
Hmm.
So we're not doing what they're telling us to do. We're doing what they do. We take
Hmm.
a page out of their playbook. We're not buying death benefit because we know that if you're going to approve me, I'm not going to need it for a really long time. So I need a contract that's going to do something for me while I'm alive. And
Yeah.
that's where we revolutionize the premium, how you spend your premium to make it more for you, less for them.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the banking system, being able to be your own bank and using there's other strategies we have that we're exploring right now that we're in the process of implementing that will help you be a bank right away. So that's getting a little bit too far down the road. But the whole point is it's in the book I say it's like getting access to a elite financial club that you never even knew existed and never knew you were paying for.
I like it. I like it,
So,
man.
and if
And
people are interested in the book, They can go to prosperity.smartestwealth.com. A bunch of info out there. It's
Yep.
on Amazon. And if you go to Amazon, search for Transforming Payments into Prosperity. And if they're interested in interest, like how much am I paying?
Yeah.
Okay. They could text the word freedom to 602-357-8249. And then it will basically, you text the word freedom to that number,
Mhm.
and the system will kick out, here's how you can download this spreadsheet. I've
Yeah.
got one of the I've got one of the sessions from one of my latest programs where I walk through how to complete the spreadsheet. So it's all there,
Yeah.
and will give you what I call the how much interest are you really paying calculator, and just make sure you got some Pepto Bismol, maybe some Tums, something
Yeah.
something, maybe a little bit of the spirits if you
Yeah. Yep.
you
Yep.
need a shot or two afterwards. But that's the thing, is you have to have your eyes open to the truth,
Yeah.
and when you have that experience, then the question is, what can I do? And that's where we step in and create the plan.
Nah, that's good. And this has been a good interview. And I say that because you've educated me on things that I heard about, but I never was educated
Yeah,
about, if that makes sense.
sure.
So I'm glad you were on here to my head still, but but I have a better understanding of how
Yeah,
things work, and it's not a one size fits all. And people who pay more into the death benefit side don't get more of the cash value side. That's
right,
pretty much what I understood about that.
right.
And again, Ramsey guy. However, I understand that his system works because it's working for me now, but I understand that there's more than one way to get wealthy. I
Yeah,
understand that too, and to take care of your family and things of that nature. So, um, but I definitely appreciate you being on here.
I
This was
appreciate you
awesome.
having me on, Jay. I
Yeah,
really
no,
enjoyed it.
absolutely. Absolutely, man. So guys, if you haven't gotten any nuggets out of here, you were sleeping. You were asleep. So Tony dropped a bunch of different nuggets, and hopefully he opens your eyes to what may be possible. Because again, there's more than one way to be wealthy. I'm teaching one way, Tony's teaching one way. There's other people who teach other ways. But at the end of the day, what is the best way for you? You
Exactly.
have options. You have options. So Tony, thank you so much for being a guest on Wealth is a Journey. I'm sure you will be back.
I'll be
Um,
happy to come back, Jay. I
no,
enjoyed it.
absolutely, man.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much for
much.
having me.
No, absolutely, man. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Wealth is a Journey. We will see you next week. About
And will give you what I call the how much interest are you really paying calculator. And just, make sure you got some Pepto Bismol, maybe some Tums, something,
yeah,
something, maybe a little bit of the spirits if you,
yeah, yep,
you
yep.
need a shot or two afterwards. But that's the thing, is you have to have your eyes open to the truth.
Yeah.
And when you have that experience, then the question is, what can I do? And that's where we step in and create the plan.
Nah, that's good. And this has been a good interview. And I say that because you've educated me on things that I heard about, but I never was educated about,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
sure.
So I'm glad you were on here to educate me. My head is still spinning a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. But but I have a better understanding of how
Yeah,
things work, and it's not a one size fits all. And people who pay more into the death benefit side don't get more of the cash value side. That's
right,
pretty much what I understood about that.
right.
And again, Ramsey guy. However, I understand that his system works because it's working for me now, but I understand that there's more than one way to get wealthy. I
Yeah,
understand that too, and to take care of your family and things of that nature. So, um, but I definitely appreciate you being on here.
I
This was
appreciate you
awesome.
having me on, Jay. I
Yeah,
really
no,
enjoyed it.
absolutely, man. So guys, if you haven't gotten any nuggets out of here, you were sleeping. You were asleep. So Tony dropped a bunch of different nuggets, and hopefully he opens your eyes to what may be possible. Because again, there's more than one way to be wealthy. I'm teaching one way, Tony's teaching one way. There's other people who teach other ways. But at the end of the day, what is the best way for you?
Exactly.
You have options. You have options. So Tony, thank you so much for being a guest on Wealth is a Journey. I'm sure you will be back.
I'd be happy to come back, Jay. I
No,
enjoyed
absolutely,
it.
man.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, absolutely, man. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Wealth is a Journey. We will see you next week.